Welcome to the Daily Dose. My name is Robert. There is Susan, and there is the lovely Lisa joining us. Lisa, hello.
I'm so excited and happy to be here. I'm especially happy to be with my dear friend here. I haven't seen her in a while.
Because people don't know, what's the relationship you and Susan? How do you know each other?
Okay, well, her mother is actually my best friend in this world. And Susan is also one of my dearest friends in this world. I came to see her mother, Jean, who is soon to be 98. And she has always brought so much joy and wisdom and clarity to my life. And Susan reflects so many of those fabulous qualities that I find in Jean. So
and
I just love her too.
Since what? High school?
Since high school.
So we grew up in the same Midwestern town.
I'm in from Evansville, Indiana.
Okay, so you stayed in Evansville then.
I did. Evansville in Florida.
So let me ask you, because we make it up when we go here. What was Susan like in high school?
Effervescent.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Such an awesome word.
And that joy that she clearly embodies was evident then, and that's what drew people to her, including myself, moi.
Lisa, I've heard you say the word joy several times today. Susan gifted me with that word about a year and a half ago. It's a word that's out there. People know it. It's different when someone gives it to you, however, and says, I need you to take this word. This is your word, and kind of, do with it, live with it. Tell me about joy and what it means to you in your life.
Well, it's just that total feeling of elation and positivity, inspired by things big and little, and it changes daily. I'm most of the time filled up with joy brought to me by my triplet granddaughters. I find joy from the ocean, which I am privileged to be around 6 months of the year.
And from my two dogs who
and,
are right
and
here.
From these dogs that I've fallen in love with.
She can't get in it. They won't leave her alone.
But, I think an openness to daily joys, big and small, is in direct correlation with just, your positive view of the world. I think the positivity allows you to be open to the joy.
And when I
gifted you the
word last year, I know why I did it, and it's just been so meaningful to me that you've referenced that several times. And obviously, there's, if not transformative, at least something in that direction. It's like I saw it and I felt it in you. And if you weren't giving yourself enough license and grace to just let it go, or you had stuff beating down, I'm not sure, but in your reflection, why is it that it struck you the way that it did?
You hit it. I think it's permission, number one, because you have to feel worthy, allowed to. And I think a lot of people, and certainly me at that time, can feel like I don't deserve to feel joy based on either how hard I have to work, how unfortunate my circumstances are, maybe what I did to cause them, or whatever kind of either guilt or shame or any of those types of things that build into it, that joy can feel like a luxury when really it should be fundamental in my opinion.
It should be fundamental.
Like a birthright.
Right.
And that's it's like I knew it was there. And I'm just so glad I said something. It was fairly early in us knowing each other, and that's kind of a big thing to say to someone.
It can cause you to really reflect, because there can be a piece and go, well, how dare you say I have joy when I have X, Y, Z? And then, if you get past that, the blaming of the other person for offering you joy, you get to the place of saying, where am I actually just blocking it for the sake of blocking it? Because again, I feel less than. And this is what it comes back to, is what we allow in, and it doesn't negate any of the difficulties or problems or anything
No,
else.
no, and they, and they always creep back in, daily for
Right.
for most all of us. But but then again, we're always able to swing back to the joy, and that
If we give ourselves
permission.
permission to accept that gift.
And I think there's a maturity about joy too as we age as well. And I was just thinking about great movie Inside Out this morning, which I know Susan and I talked about several times. Remember Joy as an infant, she could only accept joy unto herself. She had no part of sadness. Sadness didn't belong. Joy had to mature to recognize that sadness can color joy, and they can still be, what Brene Brown calls bittersweet. And actually, I mean, that's the way I look at a lot of things. It happens to be my favorite flavor. I tend to enjoy nostalgia for that reason. So all those
Dark movies.
And well, when I talked about blue and yellow, this is funny. It happens to be the colors of the Golden State Warriors.
Oh my God.
That was here. That happened. But yeah, I think there's a maturity of being able to accept joy without it having to be an all or nothing campaign. That's emotional maturity, right? You have to be completely miserable, or you get to be completely joyful. It's like, no, I can be joyful in my sadness too. I can have that. It's okay.
These moments, they all count.
Yeah.
And what does
One thing
Brene
enhances-
say? Where is Brene in the? She has a lot of courage going on with her message.
The vulnerability. Yeah. And that's it. It's allowing those things to happen, and again, recognizing the complexity of them, and recognizing again, she still recognizes she's scratching the surface with 81 emotions that she's identified. I mean, if the native Alaskan folk can have 300 some odd words for snow, why can't we have more than 3 words for emotions, right?
Yeah. So tell Lisa that statistic that you and I were talking about the other day.
So here's the crazy thing with she's like my research crush right now, right? I just making sense of so many things for me. And she said they interviewed over 7,000 people, and they asked them to identify emotions, that they could relate to, basically to name them. And
as many as they could, right?
As many as they could.
I would love to know what the first thing out of the mouths were.
Well, I can tell you. Here's what I can tell you. The average number of emotions that people could identify, 3.
Oh.
And I don't know if I get this exactly right. Susan and I were discussing yesterday, but it's somewhere in the range of happy, sad, and angry. It was something like that, and that's nuts. Those were the 3 that they could identify.
It's very surface.
That's it.
And how many emotions are there?
Well, as we continue to explore and say, oh, right, because
did anybody respond bittersweet?
It would have to be someone who would really allow for that. And I mean, I don't think I would have thought of bittersweet, because here's the funny thing: in my space in improvisation, we play games where emotions come into play. We sometimes say, give me an emotion, and the person has to act that certain way, right? We play with emotions. From the audiences, generally we'll get 4 or 5, and it's like, and as a player, like, there really aren't that many, until you start pushing. You have to have an aware director to say, by the way, we could play this too, right? We could play this. And it's like, oh, and that makes you start thinking, yeah, that is an emotion too. I have felt that way. There are subtleties to express.
And is it a question of allowing oneself, or is it more of a question of how self-actualized you are?
Yes, and.
Okay.
And that's the answer to that. That's the give and take of the world, right? I mean, I know one thing I love she talks about is our inability to truly walk in anyone else's shoes. We always talk about that.
True.
Empathy.
Yeah.
Truly.
You cannot actually walk in someone else's shoes. You can tell them you hear them, and you can believe them.
Yeah.
That second part, believing them, is just extraordinary. That's the thing. They've said it, and what they said, and you have to yes and it. Allow it to sit with you, especially if it makes you uncomfortable, especially if it makes you question your own belief system.
You know what I tend to do, and I need to like really work on myself about this, and I know you've noticed this just since I've been here. When someone is expressing something that has happened or a feeling, I tend to try and reframe it, right? And maybe I need to step back and just be a better listener.
Wow, I'm going to end on that. That's your daily dose right there, because that's a lesson for all of us. We all need to be better listeners. You are awesome. Thanks so much, Lisa.
It was just a great pleasure to finally get to see you. I've heard so many wonderful things.